Welcome to the Upshot, Ultiworld's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm your host, Josh Mansfield, and today we have a special show for you. It is holiday roundtable time, and we're going to be talking everything European disc golf. I've got two illustrious guests here with me today, coming over and making time for us over in Finland. Big thanks to both of them. Let me introduce now. We've got Juha Kytö, the media director for Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe. Juha, thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me here once again.
And also joining us, Erno Väyrynen, CEO of Powergrip Disc Golf. Erno, thanks so much for being on the program.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Josh.
So the purpose of today's roundtable, we're going to be having a discussion about as many topics as we can get to about European disc golf. And I'm really looking forward because I've got some real experts in European disc golf here with me today. Jussi Mieresma, unable to join us, unfortunately, and we wish him, he's not feeling well today, so we wish him a speedy recovery. And, well, let's jump into it. I think we have to start with what is probably one of the big announcements and not bury the lead here. 2025 PDGA World Championships is going to be held in Europe. That will move the European Open over to Estonia. And then Nokia Finland will be hosting the World Championships. I'll start with you, Juha. What do you think that means to European disc golf, and kind of the disc golf scene as a whole, to have Europe hosting its first World Championships?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest things we have kind of received back on disc golf as looking as a European perspective. It's a long work, like what Jussi has done and all of us, but especially Jussi has done with his team, with European Open and everything. And I have to say, finally, we get the Worlds to Europe, and especially it's Finland there. Right now, there are no better place to host the Worlds than Nokia and Tampere, the combined courses there, and the team over there, of course, can handle it, and they have the whole Finland and most of Europe behind them supporting to make it all happen. So it is not only like Jussi's thing or European Open thing or Finland thing. It's the whole Europe who is behind the event, and I'm super glad it finally came up to Finland and on like topped with the having another major, and in Tallinn, Estonia, which is, Estonia has been blooming as well, and the Laulu Väliak, the song festival grounds, is a fantastic place to have that as well. So 25 is gonna be awesome here in total.
I mean, it feels like it's something that's been a long time coming. European Open is always been one of the top majors, at least in my opinion, to watch. The spectators, the energy. I'm really grateful then that not only does Worlds get to take place in Finland, but that we have the European Open that's going to be happening, as you mentioned, in Estonia as well. Definitely an exciting time. Erno, you're not as involved on the tour side, but from on just the business perspective, fans, interaction with the disc golf scene, how significant have you heard people talking about this, and what is kind of the general feeling around the continued increasing of like majors and participation of professional disc golf in Europe?
Finns don't show their excitement too much, but I've seen a lot of excitement during the last few days when we heard about the news, and I can back Juha's words. I agree with everything that he said, and we don't even know how big of a thing this is for Europe, and especially for the Nordic countries and Estonia, where disc golf is primarily been growing for the past 10 to 20 years. It's a really big thing, and if you look back to the history and see the stages how disc golf has been developing, for example in Finland, there are certain things like European Open 2006. There's like European Championships 2005 and 2016, for example, and obviously these European Opens, and this will be a very important new stage for the sport in Finland.
I think this comes as a natural progression based on what we've seen in Europe. This season, we had multiple and a long string of a mini European tour expansion with silver events being part. And this isn't even mentioning the continued progression of actual European tour propers. I mean, there's been a lot of development in recent years. But this year, we had silver events for the first time over in Europe. And now, I guess the string of silver events and the first DGPT Elite event this season. And now coming up in 2024, we have the Disc Golf Pro Tour expansion and continued tour development with a string of the DGPT Elite events that will be a part of it. Juha, do you want to talk a little bit about that kind of expansion and what we're going to be seeing going into next year with the European tour development? And let's talk a little bit about how that progression has led us to kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, since past couple of years, a lot happened here in the professional scene, like regarding tours and the events are now 24. It's natural progression, I would say, where everything led up, all the different tours and events, everything we tried to get everything together, all the media teams, everybody working towards the same goal. And now in my personal perspective, it's even better than I imagined it, like in European perspective, as it's not clear to everyone that it's not only DGPT Europe elite events, but the elite events are still part of, one could call it a world tour, but it's a DGPT tour, like Tour Points series. I think it's referred as a global points series. And there are no elite event at the same time in the US when we have one in Europe. And they are not Europe elite events. They are DGPT elite events, but they are part of the European points system together with the silver events and the European Major, European Open as well. And it's I cannot talk high enough about this upcoming season.
As we're recording, we have an announcement coming out that is, so right now it's 8 o'clock. We're recording on the 21st of December. It is 8 o'clock in the morning in Mountain Time, 5 o'clock in Finnish time. And we have an announcement coming out, Juha, that's going to be about the points structure for the European point series. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and explain what we can expect to see out of the European point series this upcoming season?
Yeah, in 2 hours we come up with the announcement, so it's fresh now. We just finished, just before this meeting, we finished the announcement and the last details. The 24 schedule for European Tour will feature 5 of the elite events that score 100% of the points, meaning for the win you get the 100 points. Then we have one major, European Open, that's 200% points. Then we have 6 elite events, and the elite events have 50% of the points, except the final silver event, which is going to be after the elite ones. That will have also 100% points, so that you still on the last event, on the final event, you can kind of try to get a little bit more points and go higher up on the rankings, and maybe even go for the win of the European Tour points system. And it of course matters, because then based on the next season standings, we will hand out the tour cards for the 25 season. And that's something that players are coming for, which is actually also one thing we are having there is the European Tour Pass, it's called.
And so this Tour Pass, we know that there are going to be some American players who come over and play in the European Tour. Are they going to be getting a Tour Pass? Are they a part of this European Point Series? How does that work for somebody who is a DGPT Tour card holder in the United States and is coming over to play in Europe for an extended period of time?
Like I said earlier, the elite events are elite events, the DGPT elite events, so the tour card holders can already register to the elite events in Europe, and quite a good number of US players have been already registered. Just to take a number, it's 30 to 40 players coming to Estonia, for example, from US. And the European Tour Pass, I think if I remember correctly, it was top 30 players on the last season's European Pro Tour standings, and top 10 from Euro Tour who are not mentioned on the EPT names yet. They will qualify for the European Tour Pass, and of course we have exemptions that players can qualify for. So if there is US players who wants to play the silvers, they can try to get an exemption of the Tour Pass.
Well, very, very exciting stuff. Absolutely. Erno, you are not as involved on the tour side, but run, an incredibly large disc golf business. How have you seen your business change and in your just kind of observation as the tour continues to expand? Are you selling more Tour Series discs? Are there more demands for other molds or manufacturers because of the tour? And what are you hearing and being a part of from your standing, right? Juha is obviously much more ingrained in the tour, but from your perspective as somebody who is still very influential in the disc golf community, what do you see in terms of that tour development?
First of all, I have to mention that I think it's a brilliant thing that these a bit unclear European tours have now united, so to say, and everything is clear. It's more marketable. It's more understandable for the crowds. And when it comes to the business side of things, obviously whatever is hot is selling, and I'm sure that Juha's folks and DGPT folks and everybody is going to make the Disc Golf Pro Tour hot also in Europe, and we're going to help in that. So that will also help in disc sales.
I want to move and talk a little bit more about some disc sales, as we mentioned it. We saw during the pandemic an incredible boom in the sport, and with that were disc sales. A lot of numbers seem to show that the sales have gone down from pandemic level peaks, but not to the point that we're still above pre-pandemic levels. Erno, can you talk a little bit about how you're seeing on the business side of disc golf? What are sales like? What are the trends like? What are you kind of expecting and projecting for the next 5 years in terms of that progression?
That's the question I'd like to know the answer for. I can talk about the history, obviously, and this year has been hard also here on the Europe side of things, and our drop has been roughly 30% compared to last year. And in the big picture, I believe that disc golf will keep growing throughout our lifetimes. So I think this is like a micro thing that is happening right now. And in the big picture, disc golf will keep growing for many, many reasons we disc golfers know. For the next 5 years, it's almost impossible to say. There are so many moving parts, especially in Europe. I tend to be optimist, and I'm going to work hard that our sales are not going to drop next year. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, that's I like the goal. I was curious what the insight would be, but I think a lot of people feel the same way. It's also interesting. You talk about a lot of moving parts in Europe, and one of them has to be on the manufacturer side. Some of the largest manufacturers based out of Europe have begun to consolidate under House of Discs. Latitude 64 and the Trilogy brands, Castoplast, and now Discmania, all being a part of House of Discs, consolidates the largest manufacturing arms that actually do the production in Europe are falling under this one organization and entity. I'm both of you. I'd love to know what your thoughts are in terms of how that's going to affect the sport, how that affects sales, how that's going to affect sponsorships. I mean, there's a lot of things and topics I think that we can explore under this consolidation, and so I'm happy to have either one of you take over and talk a little bit about your thoughts and what you're seeing change because of some of this consolidation.
Yeah, I can
Would you like to begin,
Juha? Yeah, I can go first. I think it's the best thing in this kind of also, well, not unifying brands, but getting all on the same roof, is that the owners over there, they are outside investors. Like, then that is a sign that as a sport we are in a good way. Like, we are doing it correctly. It's interesting in eyes of money, if you can put it. And I mainly see just like positive things there. There's always talks about monopoly is bad and stuff like that. I don't see this going there. It's not like nothing like that. It's we already see better things coming, even from these companies or brands inside the House of Disc. Like they even that they are big companies in disc golf, they have been small companies as a businesses, and there are changes there inside these companies that they are becoming bigger companies and work like businesses should work, and that's a good thing overall.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The biggest thing here is that this is a clear sign that this is interesting outside the disc golf bubble, if I can say so. And I don't know, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be that significant for our sales immediately. What can be significant for the sport and our sales, for example, is that what kind of resources this new outside of disc golf company has, because they see the world in some ways, most likely, I can't say it in a better way, but I would be surprised if they wouldn't have more experience on making, on improving sales and phenomena as disc golf is. I believe that we're going to get more help from these outside people that are not outside anymore, but their backgrounds are in other kind of businesses that support our future growth.
Yeah, and it's not only about them making, like, that they want to make money. It's like thinking of they want to do sales, and who do they sell to? Of course, they sell to us who already play disc golf, but they also want to sell to people who don't play disc golf. If they sell discs to people who don't play disc golf, it means that they become disc golfers. Well, hopefully they become disc golfers and play more than once, and that's growing the sport as well. So it's that's kind of the view I want to bring up on that one.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And the other thing that I think is interesting here is it feels like, Juha, you talk about monopolies, and I agree that it doesn't feel like a monopoly situation when you still have companies like Innova and Discraft that, Erno, I'm sure you can speak to in terms of their popularity. I'm sure still very popular brands in Europe, even if they aren't European based. In fact, it makes it feel like this, House of Discs now is a company that is on the same level as Innova and Discraft, and probably now exceeds it in terms of their manufacturing power, their branding, and it's going to be interesting to see. Do you guys think that those brands that fall under House of Discs now are going to continue to sell and brand independently? Or do you eventually expect, rather than buying a Latitude 64 Compass, for example, I would be buying a single brand that they're consolidating under in terms of sponsorships? Do you think Discmania and Latitude are going to sponsor independently still and will sign players as a Latitude player and as a Discmania player? Or are they going to start just signing players who play for House of Discs?
I can start with this one. Obviously, I don't know the truth. I've been talking with the House of Discs people, and currently the thinking is that this won't change like in a big way. Obviously, when one single entity controls all the brands, obviously they will take a fresh look what we should be doing with these brands here and there. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that there are some discussions going on whether some player can change to another brand within that umbrella. But I think that's just like a normal thing to do if you control more than one brand. There needs to be some logic behind having these different brands.
Yeah, I think this is one of the signs of that as a sport we are in a good way, good path. And for example, if you look on the really big market and brands like or companies like Nestle, Mars. Mars, for example, has of course Mars chocolate bar, but they also have Snickers. I think Milky Way is theirs, or Bounty, whatever. So on doing the same product with different brands is and they still are like I don't know how many dozens or hundreds years old brands they are, but they're still separate brands instead of going just one big and large chocolate bar.
I'm trying to imagine what a chocolate bar would look like if all of those were just in selling a single chocolate bar, and it's hard to think about.
Yeah.
So I want to. This gives me a good segue as we talk a little bit about players, where they're signing, and I want to talk about player development in Europe. MPO players coming out of Europe are becoming more competitive than ever. We've seen podium finishes out of European players at majors, and they continue to raise to the level. We have 1040 rated players like Nicholas Antila, who is among the top in the world by rating. But it's clear that the level of competitiveness is still not quite at the same level when you look at the FPO side, where you have Kristen Tatar, who is dominant, and Evelina and Henna both are elite throwers, and you cannot argue that they're probably some of the best throwers on tour. You have the emergence of more young players, Silva Saarinen, for example, just incredibly competitive. It feels, as someone who watches a lot of disc golf, that FPO Europeans are more competitive than their MPO counterparts. Do you agree with that sentiment? Why do you think that is? Do you think, what's the progression going to look like of both sides of the game, especially as we increase the tour? And talk a little bit about, your guys' perspective then on that subject of FPO versus MPO and how they fit into the most competitive levels of disc golf.
Yeah, I can start. One thing here in Nordic Europe especially is that our season is not that long, so our players are not able to practice at the courses that much as they can in US. So overall, that gives us or gives the US players a benefit over there. Then going with the MPO FPO comparison, we have noted that years ago. Like even I started playing disc golf 14 years ago, and already at that time it was like, hey, Evelina was, I don't know, she was like 13 years old or something at that point and threw far. Like it was amazing to watch at that time, and it still is. And I think it was 3 years ago we did this kind of reality disc golf TV show called Lead Card. And it was actually a couple of years ago when Evelina and Henna was actually there as well. And we had cameras filming like in Big Brother, like also outside of the course and when they were eating and stuff. And they had a good talk there. And one of their perspective was that because we haven't had a separate FPO layouts in Europe anywhere until the recent years, that might be one of the reasons why the FPO players are better, because they have to play on the same difficult courses and compete on the same difficult courses than the MPO players do. So that's kind of one of of course, they need to practice and there needs to be talent, but that's probably one of the things that might be there on behind of that, because looking at the ratio, the European FPO players are better than in US.
Yeah, at least in the results that matter. I did a little study. I didn't do much study before this podcast, but I noticed that females are roughly 8% when it comes to the Finnish player base and the PDGA, the whole PDGA player base. So it's roughly 8%. So there's no difference in that percentage. And this all is speculation, and probably the reason for FPO resulting better than MPO when it comes to Europeans is probably an outcome of many different factors. And I believe that one factor can also be that disc golf is considered more as a sport, also a family sport, especially in the Nordics compared to the US, especially California, which is familiar to me. Like we tried to sell disc golf park back in the day to the Californians on the trade shows, and we were like a joke for them because of the, you know what I'm talking about, the stigma disc golf has, especially in that area. Hopefully and likely that is changing as this sport is growing and there's disc golf pro tour and everything. Another likely reason is that the NPO field has a much wider competition. The FPO competition is not that wide. There are great players. They have always been great players, but not as many as in the NPO field. So that's one of the biggest reasons, I think.
I think those are both excellent points. On the MPO side, you talk, Juha, you bring up the fact that the seasons are a little bit shorter, and I want to talk a little bit more about Nordic countries, especially, and kind of the development of disc golf in European countries. But the course layouts. Paul Macbeth commented when he went over and played on his extended European stretch that the courses in Europe feel like what disc golf used to be, right? Shaping shots, very wooded courses. The kind of course design, they're shorter than what's typically on tour. Do you feel that the type of layouts that Europe plays versus what the United States-based tour, which is becoming more and more golf courses and longer, and I mean that's how we're trying to keep up with the evolving game, right? Pros throw further than they ever have before. They're better players than they ever have been. And so we stretch courses out. That doesn't feel like it's happening in Europe as much. The tour being, there's other reasons, I don't know, but it feels like MPO players are playing a very different style of golf, and the way that the tour is moving in the United States is one that's not going to be favoring European pro MPO players. Do you share a similar sentiment, or do you think that's misplaced?
I have to say that I'm not an expert when it comes to current development of courses, even though courses are very close to my heart, and I think that creating more courses is one of the best things that you can do when growing the sport. I can't argue against Paul Macbeth, who probably knows what he's talking about. And I would say that the situation, especially on the tour, on Disc Golf Pro Tour, is a lot different from, for example, 15 years ago when I visited the US for the first time and I played in Sacramento. I played the traditional disc golf courses, and then the situation was completely the opposite when you think about the courses in the Nordics and those traditional US courses. Probably this Disc Golf Pro Tour, what we're now seeing, these courses are way different compared to those that I mentioned. So the sport has developed in that direction, which is good lengthwise. I'm not sure whether it's good that everything is so open. Probably not. Maybe the medium would be a good option. I don't know exactly. I don't think that the distance is any kind of a problem for European players. At least traditionally, it hasn't been. And I don't think that there are limitations, especially in the Nordics, where we have lots of space, not so many people. We have lots of space to create different kind of courses. Juha, can you add something clever?
Yeah, I can agree on the that the overall the European, on the big picture, European courses tend to be shorter, more wooded, more technical. Is the US courses or the DGPT courses, are they too long already? Might be. Do the players want that? Do the spectators want that? Good thing to keep in mind is that we need to do the sport for the spectators as well. They want to see the shots both on site over there, but also from the live and post productions as well. And I think maybe something between, like if we really take all the courses that is on the tour in Europe and in the US, something from between those will be the optimal point, because not all the players like the big open golf course distance holes, and they might be like, looking boring. Like, to be honest, DDO, the Emporia Country Club, it looks boring, but the course is really good. Like, you don't see it on camera because of you don't see the OBs, you don't see the elevation that well. But it's a good course. It's a long course, but and it's a good course. And like Erno said, the distance hasn't been a problem for European players. It usually has been putting. Like that's where we have lost every time. And it's good to see that finally European players, or especially I know the Finnish players, they are practicing putting like they should have done 10 years ago already. So they are gaining over there on that one. And one thing is that in Europe, the land costs a lot. Like, everything is quite more built than in US. Like, the good long courses in US, in the tour as well, they are quite in remote locations compared to what we have in Europe. Like, the biggest events are basically in the heart of the capital of the country, or even really close to it. And but we are also in problems with that. Like the Nokia and Tampere courses, which are going to be in Worlds, they are also struggling with the new buildings coming up there, because people are moving in there, and that's a problem.
At Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the US, employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality US materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Why is disc golf so popular in Europe? Because, Juha, you highlight exactly what I've always found so perplexing about European disc golf. In the United States, right, I live in a very rural area, and very few people, lots of open space, and that's how I came to find disc golf. There's not as much to do, and so I found an outdoor activity, and there was lots of space, and started playing disc golf up in the mountains. But in Europe, I mean, land is a precious commodity, and rural in European countries is just very different than what rural in the United States looks like. And so tell me a little bit about, how did disc golf become so popular in European countries? How do people find disc golf? How did you guys find disc golf? And let's start there. And then I have some other questions I'll add on after.
2003.
I think, I've started 2010. Well, actually started playing. I tried disc golf for years before that, but then I had some other things in my mind. I think one of the big reasons why Europe has also, especially, and the Nordic countries have taken disc golf as their own better, is that it wasn't a new thing when it came into our country. Like when started in US, it started from college. The players who played disc golf and frisbee sports at the time, well, college students, they were probably something else than athletes at the time. And that, like Erno said, stigma has kind of been there and still is there. And in Europe, it's looked more as a sport and even as a professional sport from the beginning, like from the start. Of course, there and both of these worlds needs to exist in this sport.
Yeah, that's true. And when we talk about European disc golf, I want to underline it's the biggest in the Nordics, especially Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. Obviously, Estonia is not a Nordic country per se, but they are also a big factor, especially compared to their size. Czech Republic, for example, Germany. There are some hundreds of courses, but compared to the population, it's not big. But it's really big in the Nordics. And I started in 2003, and we had roughly 20 courses in Finland then, and now we have more than 1,000 courses. So I've been lucky to be part of the growth here. And the reasons for the growth, there are some key reasons, I would say. One of the reasons is that this is, for example, Finland and Sweden, they are small, homogeneous countries. People are very similar culturally, language-wise. Demographics is very homogeneous. It's easy to reach this kind of a population. And when something is cool and it's readily available, disc golf courses have been us, the companies, we have sold. We have made it easy for the cities and communities and whatever companies to purchase a disc golf course. That's one thing. And there has been a lot of volunteers, important clubs all across the country. All this together with the rise of social media, have helped disc golf to grow as big as it is today. And the work continues. For example, Finland's Disc Golf Association, they are investing in putting disc golf in schools and arranging activities and developing that also professionally. So all this together, it's easier to manage a small country.
What I would assume, and maybe this is a poor assumption, but my assumption is that the biggest sport in Finland and Nordic countries is still football or soccer, correct?
I'm not an expert in these sports, but soccer is up there for sure. Ice hockey, soccer.
Ice hockey. Yeah. Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
Ice hockey is probably the number one. Yeah.
Ice hockey. Okay. Tell me, so let's take, whatever sport we decide is number one in Finland, right? In the United States, we have, American football often, right? And so American football, it's very much, you have little leagues that are designed for kids to go play. And when I lived in France, you had playing soccer, you had soccer courts on every street corner, right? And that's just, everyone played. Where is disc golf's popularity relative to the most popular sports, ice hockey, for example, in the Nordic countries? Or is it up there? Like, does tons of people play ice hockey and know what it is, obviously, and same for disc golf, or is it still a relatively minority sport relative to ice hockey?
The following is official information, and I like to talk through numbers that are official, so it's not speculation. Among kids, especially boys between the ages of 11 to 15, disc golf is the third most popular sport after, soccer and bicycling.
Bicycling, okay.
Yeah, and there has been a story that 1 million Finns have tried disc golf at some point. We're a nation of 5.5 million people, something like that. So obviously not 1 million people are playing it actively, but it's hugely popular in Finland.
I'd say everybody knows disc golf. Like even when I started 14 years ago, at that time you needed to explain what are these, what the deer feeding things are in the park. But these days the same people can ask like, hey, didn't you play that disc golf thing? It's like, yeah, I'm still kind of involved in it somewhere. I have tried it. So like these days, pretty much everyone knows what disc golf is in Finland. So that's completely switched around. I would put it there in amongst of the like major sport or primarily sports in Finland that both as a hobby or go play once or twice a summer, or if you as a fan, sports fan, it's not on the top. Over there, it's not on the top list. Of course, the ice hockey, rally, football, all of those are in much bigger numbers, but we are working to be up there with them.
Well, and I think the other thing with more professional events, the time zones have been one of the biggest things, right? When the biggest media coverage is based on events that happen in the middle of the night for you guys, it makes sense why spectating and consuming disc golf media is significantly more difficult. And I am excited for live events that are taking place in your time zones so that people can watch live and be a part of it. And not have to stay up until 3 a.m. in order to watch the tournament. And Worlds 2025, it'll be the Americans who are going to be staying up late to catch, or getting up early in order to watch the event. And so that's got to play a
fun story.
big role.
Yeah, fun story about the legendary Holy Shot. It's somebody. I think PDGA has and DGPT has forgot the Holy Shot. It's not up in the social media every single day anymore. So I want to bring it up. That was Worlds happening in the middle of the night. I think it was around 1 or 2 a.m. in our time. I was on bed at the time. We were living at the course. We have the Sippe disc golf course in Sipoo, where the Tyyni event is held annually, except this year 24. I was asleep, and we had actually a PDG event going on in the middle of the night. I had already fallen asleep watching the Worlds, but because there was a basket right under our window, I actually woke up because somebody, I think they made everybody made a birdie on the hole, and they started to rattle the chains. And I woke up to that. I was like, maybe the Worlds are still on. The TV already went off, and I put it on. I was like, oh, what's the situation? Oh, I can see who is going to win. Oh, Paul is going to win. And then, Holy Shot happened, and that's a nice story. But we play disc golf, PDGA events, even in the middle of the night.
Did you go thank the guys who woke you up so you were able to see the Holy Shot?
No, I went to sleep after James got his trophy. Yeah,
I can't blame you. It's that is so fascinating to me about just how popular it is. The fact that 1 in 5 Finns have played disc golf sometime in their life. I'm explaining it all the time, just like, what is disc golf? Most people in the United States have not tried it, and so it's becoming more popular. But that is just absolutely mind-boggling, and I can't even imagine what that would be like. What do you guys think then is it going to take to grow disc golf outside the Nordic countries? Because when I lived in France from 2015 to 2017, and while I was there, I think there was like 2 courses in the area. In all the cities I lived in, there was 1 or 2 courses total, and nobody knew what the sport was over there. And so what's it going to take to expand disc golf outside of just the Nordic countries and Estonia and the places where it's already established?
It's the answer is building more courses, obviously. When you have a course, when you build it, they will come. That still works. One good example in Spain is the largest public university that the Paul Macbeth Foundation, Latitude 64, established a course in. That's one brilliant example what you can do to enter, I would say, new disc golf market that Spain, in my opinion, is. That's a good example. It requires a lot of groundwork. It requires building culture in many different ways. All that has happened, for example, in Finland or Sweden or Estonia during the past years. All those things need to happen, but it can be accelerated by having better content like Disc Golf Pro Tour available in the future, having the Worlds in Europe. I'm sure that will have that's one example of the side effects. I don't know yet what's going to happen when we get Worlds in Europe, but it's definitely going to help all the European countries.
Yeah, I can agree on that, and the kind of it's a sum of multiple different things, but it starts with having a course and having discs to play with. Like, you need those two to play disc golf. Well, maybe you don't need a course, but it helps a lot, a lot on it, and that's a good work. Like what Paul Macbeth Foundation is doing, they're doing great work on it. Actually, PDGA Europe can now they have more resources to put on new courses up in, especially in Southern Europe. Spain is a good example. Both France, Belgium, Netherlands, like everything Western, Southern Europe, Italy, there is plenty of potential disc golf countries there with a lot of people there, and then trying to, I'd say, what, for example, DGPT Europe can do is there over Germany, France, where there is already like quite a good number of courses and there are some players. So maybe there our existence then can help boost the existing community, which then as a side effect of that, they bring in more players, more courses. So it's there is no one answer to that unless you have endless amount of money and pay everyone 1 million euros to play disc golf. maybe.
Yeah, and I don't know how much collaboration is happening between the countries. But for example, I know something about the developing the educational side of disc golf in Finland, and we've been collaborating with Denmark and Iceland, at least, maybe some other countries, and we have agreed in those countries when I visited them that a lot more could and should be done. And I hope that PDGA Europe will lead the way here. And because, for example, here in Finland, we have a lot of things that we know that we would be happy to pass on to other European countries, and even to the US, even though you're very self-sufficient and further ahead of us.
I mean, I think there are plenty of things that we could learn from European disc golf, and without a doubt.
It goes both ways.
That's right. It absolutely does. I wanted to wrap up with one final question and topic, I guess. What do you envision as the future of European disc golf? And I want this to be as open-ended as I can, whether that's, aspirations, hopes, projects that you think need to happen. What is, in your opinion, the future of European disc golf?
I can start. Hopefully, I still have a job at the DGPT after that. But in the future, I honestly see and I believe that in Europe, the professional tour will be much more, how would you say, like more premium, more valuable, kind of more prestige than in US. And because we have like said before, we have the benefit of mainly disc golf is considered as a professional sport. So there is the the starting point for us is to build it as a professional sport instead of trying to brainwash people. It's not brainwashing, telling them the truth that this can be a professional sport. You know, in US you need
reverse
to
their
tell people
brainwashing.
what disc golf is. Yeah, and but by that I think we have a really good chance to be one of the like big major sports in Europe, and by that even be better than in US, even that we have like the market could be smaller, but if it's more prestige, then it's bigger at that point.
Yeah, that's a that's a very big question with a lot of parameters. Public health and not. I love the competition side of disc golf, and I watch disc golf events. But to me, the public health side of things, the families playing together is more important than the top level. Sorry to Painers and Paul Macbeth and all you guys, but you show what this sport can be, so that it's like it's a national sport in Finland. I could say, so it can become something like that when you have the top level displayed really nicely. When there's the business involved, I'm not even though I make my living through disc golf. I love the fact that it's so affordable, that the courses are in the nature. You don't have to pay a lot of money to play the sport. It's very equal, and we have all the elements to make it really big. And regardless of any crises, the more there are crises, the more there are reasons for disc golf, I think.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, Juha, Erno, for your time. This has been a fascinating discussion. I mean, disc golf in Europe is one of, I think, the most important discussion topics as we continue to grow the sport. Thank you both to all the work that you have done. And this really has been a pleasure. To you, your families, and to all of our Upshot listeners, have a happy holidays. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.